Hello, Math Stars. This is section 3.7 of 0028, the U-try problems. So in this section, you are solving a quadratic equation by factoring. If you look at letter A here, this is a problem that has already been factored for you. So if you notice that you've got, that your teacher has no pen, you've got the A times B equals 0 format already set up for you. So a lot of people, the first thing you want to try and do is people always want to say, oh, I need to FOIL. No, totally wrong. It's already been factored for you. So what you do, since it's already in that A times B format, is you set each factor equal to 0 using your zero products principle. So z plus 8 equals 0 and z minus 9 equals 0. Also notice the directions say solve. It doesn't just say factor, okay? So we look at the first equation, z plus 8 equals 0. So I need to subtract 8 from both sides of the equation. So the z comes down and it equals negative 8. And then we come over to the second equation. Here we need to get rid of the negative 9. So I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So z equals 9. So the thing here, when you write your answers into WebAssign, you're going to put negative 8, comma 9. And it doesn't matter what order they're in. But the thing to remember on this first one is that it's already factored for you. That's what you need to see. It's already in that factored format, so you can go ahead and set them both equal to 0. Okay? Look at letter B. This has also been factored, and the reason I know is because there's parentheses. It's written as a multiplication problem. So the 4b is the A part times the 2b plus 5. That's the B part. I hope you can't hear my phone ringing. Sorry. A times B equals 0. So we now set those two factors equal to 0. 4b equals 0 and 2b plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so hopefully these people will hang up. 4b equals 0. To get rid of the 4, you have to divide by 4 on both sides. And so the 4's cancel, and b comes down, and it equals 0. 0 divided by 4 is 0. Now on the second equation, we're going to set 2b plus 5 equal to 0. So the first thing we have to do is subtract the 5 from both sides, just like plain old equations. So 2b comes down, cancel the 5's, and then we get negative 5 on the other side. Okay, so now to get the b by itself, we need to get rid of the 2. So you're going to divide by 2 on both sides. Now, remain calm. You're going to get a fraction. Oh my gosh. Don't freak out, okay? It's okay. In fact, a lot of these you will get fractions. And so you have b equals negative 5 over 2. So you just list your two answers with a comma in between. All right, let's see what's next. So letter C, this is a quadratic equation. The way that I know it's a quadratic equation is because of the square. Anytime you have a squared term and it's equal to 0, that's in standard form of a quadratic equation. It has to be in descending order and equal to 0. So that's how we know it's ready to go. All right, so the first step we're going to do is try and factor it. There's no GCF. So I'm going to go ahead and set up parentheses and keep it equal to 0. Very important. Okay, so I can go ahead and put z and z in the first two places of FOIL. Now I need to think about the factors of 72, and it's a negative. So for 72, I think of 8 and 9. I'm going to try negative 8 and 9 or negative 9 and 8. Now, the coefficient that I'm looking for is a 1, a positive 1. If I look at the very first set of terms, negative 8 plus 9, that's going to give me that positive 1. So that's what I want to use. I'm going to put minus 8 and plus 9. So now you've got it in that A times B equals 0 format, okay, which is what you want. So you're going to put z minus 8 equal to 0 and z plus 9 equal to 0. So once it's factored, you set each of your factors equal to 0, and then you solve those equations. So over here, I need to add 8 to both sides. So z equals 8. Those are gone. And over here, I need to subtract 9 from both sides. So z comes down and it equals negative 9. All right, so there's our answers, 8 and negative 9. All right, now letter D is a little weird, okay? First of all, it is in standard form because it's in descending order and it's equal to 0, so that's good. But when you start to look for a GCF, remember that's the first step of your factoring checklist, there is a GCF of 2. 2 goes into all those. So what you're going to factor out is a 2. And remember, if you divide each term by 2 here, you're going to get x squared minus 3x minus 10, okay? And then equals 0. Now here's the weird part. The 2 is still going to come down for now, okay? But when we have what we have left in the parentheses is a trinomial that we're going to try and factor. So we're going to set up our parentheses for FOIL, and you can put x and x in the first place as a FOIL. Now we need the factors of negative 10 that add up to negative 3. So what about negative 2 and 5 or negative 5 and 2? Well, the first one doesn't work, but the second one, that gives me a negative 3. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. So I'm going to put in negative 5 and positive 2. Okay, now here's the weird part. The 2 that's on the outside, that is what they call just kind of an extraneous root. It's not an answer to the problem because remember the problem said that you take the factors, okay, and set them equal to 0, but there's no variable with that 2. So can you make 2 equal 0? No, 2 is 2, 0, 0. They're not going to be the same. So you don't even worry about that. It's kind of weird because people are like, what do you mean you just drop it? Just drop it. Let it go. Let it go. All right. You want me to sing some more? I can. That's okay. All right. So now we're going to torture you. No, we're going to put these two factors equal to 0. X minus 5 equal to 0 and x plus 2 equals 0. So we add 5 to both sides. So x equals 5. And over here, subtract 2 and x equals negative 2. So our two answers there are 5 and negative 2. Another way you can tell that this 2 on the outside can't be a solution is back at the very beginning of the problem. We have x squared as our biggest exponent. That tells you that at most you can only have 2 answers. So there's no way we could have had a third answer there. Would have been wrong. Okay? All right, let's see what's next. Letter E. It is in standard form because it's in descending order and it's equal to 0. Okay, so remember your checklist for factoring. GCF, we don't have one. The next thing we look for is perfect squares. Well, both of those terms are perfect squares. So we're going to set up FOIL and we're going to factor this. Okay, so the square root of 16x squared would be 4x and 4x. And the square root of 49 is 7 and 7. Now, the last term is a negative, so that means the signs down here have to be opposites of each other, plus and minus. That's a plus sign. It's a pitiful plus sign, but it is. All right, so now the plus and the minus allows that middle term to cancel out, so that works if you check it with FOIL. So now what we're going to do is set those two factors equal to 0. 4x plus 7 equals 0. 4x minus 7 equals 0. So on the first one, we're going to subtract 7. So 4x comes down, 7's cancel, and we get negative 7. Now divide by 4, just like normal, and we get x equals a negative 7/4. Okay? Over here, on the second equation, we first have to add 7 to both sides. So the 4x comes down, and it equals a positive 7, and then divide by 4 on both sides, so x equals a positive 7/4. So those are two totally different answers, negative 7/4 and positive 7/4. There's your answers. All right, letter F involves a little bit more work because when you first look at this equation, it's the first thing you need to see is that it is not in standard form, okay, because it is not equal to 0. It is in descending order on the left-hand side, but we have to have it equal to 0. So the way we're going to get it equal to 0 is we're going to subtract 8 from both sides of the equation. Now, I'm just kind of sticking it out here kind of behind the 7y because 8 is not a like term with the rest of those terms. So what we're going to do is bring them all down. Y squared minus 7y minus 8, that just gets stuck on at the end, equals 0 because the 8's cancel. Okay? Now it's in descending order and equal to 0, so we're going to factor. Alright, so there's no GCF, there's no perfect squares, so we're setting up FOIL. So we have y and y, and we need the factors of negative 8. So if we use negative 1 and 8, or negative 8 and 1, negative 8 plus 1 gives me negative 7. So that's going to work. So put in negative 8, positive 1. Okay, so now it's factored. Your next step, set them equal to 0. Y minus 8 equals 0, and y plus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. Those cancel. Y equals 8. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, so y equals negative 1. So we have 8 and negative 1. Alright, I think we have a couple more. Oh yeah, yuck. Well, I mean not yuck, not too bad. G is not too bad. H is disgusting, but that's okay. Alright, so G, what you need to see here is that it's not equal to 0. Okay, so what you have to do is you're going to have to get the 15 on the other side, and you're going to have to distribute that y through the parentheses. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute first with the y. So you're going to have y squared, because y times y, plus 8y equals negative 15. Now it looks just like the one we just did, okay? So I need to get the 15, I want it to cancel out to 0, so I'm going to add 15. And just like the last one, I'm going to kind of stick it at the end. So we're going to have y squared plus 8y plus 15 equals 0. So remember, it has to be equal to 0 before you can start factoring. So now it's in standard form. We go ahead and factor. There's no GCF, so we set up FOIL. We do not have perfect squares, so we put in y and y. And think about the factors of 15. If we use 3 and 5, that'll add up to 8. Okay, and remember, if the last term's positive, you go to the middle sign. They both have to be plus. Okay, so then we set y plus 3 equal to 0, and y plus 5 equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. So y equals negative 3. There's one answer. And over here, subtract 5. So y equals negative 5. So I have negative 3 and negative 5 as my answers there. Now, H is a beast, because what you have to do, we're going to have to move that negative 35. But we have to simplify the left-hand side first. And what does it look like? FOIL. Yeah, and that's what you have to do. Now, if it was equal to 0 instead of negative 35, we would just be setting those two terms equal to 0. Boom, quick, we're done. But because it's equal to negative 35, we're going to have to do FOIL through these parentheses first. So we're going to have z times z is z squared. And let's see, the outer term would be positive 4z. The inner term, negative 8 times z, is negative 8z. And the last would be negative 32 equals negative 35. Okay, so I'm at the right kind of small because this is going to be a little bit of stuff. So we have z squared. That comes down. Now you have like terms. 4z minus 8z would be negative 4z minus 32 equals negative 35. Now here's the weird part. It's almost in standard form, but we still have it equal to negative 35. So I'm going to add 35 to both sides because that's got to cancel out to 0. But on the other side, we actually do have a like term with the 35. I'm going to put it underneath the negative 32 because those are like terms. So that's what you do. So we have z squared minus 4z, and negative 32 plus 35 is what? Positive 3 equals 0. Now we can start the stinking problem. Is this crazy or what? All right, so we're going to set up FOIL because there's no GCF. Okay. All right, keep it equal to 0. We put in z and z. I hate z's. They're hard to write. This stupid pen. All right, so for 3, we only have the factors of 1 and 3, which do add up to 4, which is good. And remember your sign rule. If the last term is positive, you go to the middle sign and use that in both parentheses, so both negative. And that gives you that negative 4. So now we set them both equal to 0, both factors. So I'm going to add 1, and z equals 1, and then add 3, and z equals 3. So your answers are 1 and 3. And that should just about do it. What the section is this? 3.7. Good luck with that homework.